Thank you very much. Welcome. You know the governor's account, Your Excellency. Not honorable.
Yes. Yeah.
And karibu hapa.
Asante sana.
You have this conference which is starting today in Meru. And I think the president is going to come to open it. Tomorrow. And you are going to up it up to Saturday. What is the highlight of it and what's the purpose for it? I think this is the second?
This is the third.
The third one, okay.
Thank you. I think this is the third annual conference, Devolution conference, that we are holding since 2013 when we held elections. The first one having been in Kwale. Last year we had one in Kisumu, and this year we are going to Meru. This particular conference is critical, it's important, because we are holding it at a time when the transition period is over. Remember, the transition authority, the mandate ended on 4th of March this year. And therefore, we are going to be reflecting on how we have performed as counties the last 3 years, and how we are going to perform without the transition authority, because now we have the Intergovernmental Technical Relations Committee, which has taken over. So it is a conference that we are going to use to reflect on the achievements, on the challenges, and a way forward on how we push the country forward, given that devolution is now taking root. It's a conference that will have all stakeholders. We have invited the senators, we have the MCS, the members of the county assembly, we have other devolution stakeholders, citizens, private parties who have also been invited to come to this particular conference.
I noticed that you have a speaker from Namibia.
Yes, we have the Prime Minister from Namibia, who is going to be our chief guest, apart from the President, who will be also gracing the occasion tomorrow. Of course, we would like to invite other people from other countries who also practice devolution to come and see what we are doing.
Namibia a success story when it comes to devolution?
Yeah, Namibia is a success story. Remember, even there was a time when they were having the elections, Kenya sent representatives there some time back to go and see what they are doing. So we invited a number of guests, and we're happy that Namibia agreed to come to, the Prime Minister agreed to come and to grace the occasion.
There was some noise made by senators that originally they were not going to come. They said they were not coming, but now there's a notice they're going to come.
Yes. And
their intention, according to what is written in the press, is to ensure that you don't go chest thumping there. You need to be held to account.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a good opportunity for us to even bond further with the senators, because the senators are supposed to be the custodians of devolution. They're supposed to provide oversight, and they have been participating in the committee. There's a committee that has been working on this. So when this story of maybe senators not coming, of course it was not going to be good for devolution, because devolution does not belong to the governors alone. Devolution is a whole, is something that belongs to all of us. We are only executive CEOs in the counties, and the senators also play a key role. The MCS play a key role. So when they come, I know last year there was a bit of complaint that they were on the periphery in terms of participation. But if you look at the program that is going to run, most of them are panelists. The Speaker of the Senate will also be there. They're also going to be, apart from being panelists, they're also going to be chairmen. They are going to also contribute so much in what goes on there. So I think it will be good for them to come, so that if there is anything, we can be able to talk to each other and not at each other.
The main issue with the senators and the governors is the question of accountability.
Yes.
They are supposed to do a supervisory role.
Yes.
And there were issues about accountability.
Yeah, I think,
of course, there is a conflict of interest, because many senators want to be governors.
Yes.
So when it comes to accountability and oversight, some of them tend to be overzealous, to the extent of wanting to diminish governors, and they will roll the play individually, so that they may show that they are not doing work so that can themselves be elected.
In fact, that is where the conflict is, and that's why it's important to talk, because the architects of the Constitution, I think, were very clear on the roles that each each part plays. For example, the Senate have their role as oversight, just the way the MCS have their role as oversight, and then we are the CECs, we execute what has been passed by the Assembly. And unfortunately, when you look at, like you have rightly said, most senators now want to go for governorship, because I think they've realized that maybe that is where there's power, we have resources and all that. And that has compromised, if you ask me, their role as oversight, because you can imagine when my good friend Senator Boni Khalwade, the senator for Kakamega, when he was the chairman of PAC, and invites Oparanya to appear before that committee where he's chairing, you can imagine what the conversation will be like, because if you are interested in my position, you will concentrate on bringing me down or painting me in the negative, so that then people can see that you are an alternative. But we are hoping that going forward, even in future, that this should be maybe should be looked at afresh, so that when you are oversighting, you don't have an interest in what you're oversighting. But the governors have never refused to be accountable. Few governors who have been called to the Senate have gone there to explain what we were saying, and maybe this also needs to be looked at. For example, okay, the buck stops with the governor, but we have a bureaucracy down there. We have the CEC members who are like the county ministers. We have chief officers who are the accounting officers, who are like permanent secretaries, who are involved in the day-to-day running of the ministries. And that is where we are saying that the accountability should start there. For example, the county assembly committees usually summon the CEC members, they summon the chief officers to go and explain areas which are not clear. And our understanding is that if then they are not satisfied, the Senate should be able then to take over and then interrogate what has been asked. And if they are also not satisfied, then we have auditors and other agencies that deal with accountability. Of course, we are also, the Senate has that role of making sure that we are accountable. So what an impression that was created, like governors don't want to be accountable, was wrong. We want to be accountable. These are public funds, and we must be able to explain to people how it has been used. And if properly done, without malice, without witch hunt, then that is the way to go.
Are you satisfying the oversight role of the MCAs? It looks like in many counties, yes, MCAs are in bed with the governors.
We had a problem with the MCAs at the beginning, but I think going forward there's been a lot of improvement. And I think this again was lack of understanding on the roles that we were all playing. The governors, the senators, and you see the problem with MCAs, they're also under a lot of pressure, if you have noticed, under a lot of pressure from Wananchi, asking them, what have you done for these years you've been there? Because I think as they campaigned, most of them promised that they were going to do certain things to Wananchi without understanding that that role had shifted from the MCAs to the governors, who are the executive arm of government. So when Wananchi asks, you have not given us water, that is not their responsibility. They're supposed to oversight. Because you can imagine, for example, where you are like in Bungoma, we give bursaries. If you are the one who is going to generate a list of the beneficiaries, and at the same time you're supposed to oversight in case those who don't qualify to get a bursary have been awarded that bursary, then it comes to the assembly, you are the one who has done it, then there's a conflict of interest. So I think it's becoming clear, and I know that the next 5 years moving forward, the MCAs that will come would have understood clearly their role as oversight, representation and legislation. And then the executive will have the role of executing what has been approved by the county assemblies in terms of budgetary provision and all that.
When you look at the Auditor General's report, the Auditor General is very unhappy with the management of some counties. Financially, like many trips that have been made, you yourselves went to Spain, I think.
Yes, we went to Spain, yes.
And people could not understand what the hell we were going to do in Spain. and a lot of MCAs went to Israel, wherever, to the extent the Minister of Foreign Affairs was getting embarrassed.
It is true that at the beginning, like I said, we were all in the learning process. Nobody had been in this devolution system, so there was a lot of excitement. It is true that some things were done overboard. Like you'll find maybe a number of MCAs going to a country, maybe 20 of them, 30 of them, it can cause diplomatic nightmares or, in terms of arrangement. But this has also reduced because it had to do with the budget. So we made sure that in the budget provision, money allocated, and these are some of the austerity measures that we even arrived at during our last summit with His Excellency the President, that the money allocated for foreign trips and even local trips is reduced and instead put on the development budget, so that we don't spend a lot of money. But of course, we are not saying people are not going to travel. It's also important to see what happens in other countries, because again, if you just sit in your county and imagine that, for example, investors are going to come, foreign investors are going to come to invest in your county, you may wait until Jesus Christ comes back. But if you also travel, and the travel must be targeted. You don't just wake up and say you are going to Malaysia or you are going to Israel, then you end up going to where Jesus Christ was born, and then you don't come back with any report on what you have achieved. Then that's wrong. But that has been addressed, and you will be seeing in many years to come that is not going to be the practice. The trips will be targeted, and those who are going will also be relevant people, because you also don't want just everybody to travel. The Auditor General, of course, has pointed out a number of issues in the counties. And of course, the role of the Auditor General, and I know the Auditor General himself, Mr. Uko, when he came in, I was in government as a permanent secretary. His approach was very good. It's not like, it's not supposed to be like a policeman harassing people and doing that. It's supposed to make recommendations that will strengthen institutions of financial management. That is what they should do, and there are what we call management letters that come to point out areas that maybe need that he's concerned about. For example, if you have incurred an expenditure and there's no documentation at the time the auditors, for example, came, they normally give you some time to be able to avail the documents that you require, that are required to confirm that that expenditure was incurred and is proper. So if within that period that they have given you don't produce the documents, then they will now put it as an audit query, because then it means if you say you went to London and there's nothing to show that you went, then that's an audit query. It could be misappropriation of funds. But unfortunately, some of these reports that have been coming up are reports that are overtaken by events, because sometimes, like last time, you remember, most counties complained because information had been availed, but what came out as an audit report was completely different from what we expected, because it was most of the counties had given documents, and that did not, it reflected us in bad light. And also, as counties, we have been saying, sometimes there's a lot of focus. I know the focus is in counties, but there's a lot of focus on audit in the counties, and not supposed even to also saying what is happening in the national government.
There was a report which showed money not accounted for in the national government.
Yes.
But in one case, there was this issue about the wheelbarrows.
Yes.
I don't know whether anybody was sacked or...
yes, of course, the preliminary report, we surcharged people, and we now remember I also invited the members of the EACC who are also yet to conclude. Once they conclude the investigations.
Why is it taking so long? Is that why a few wheelbarrows was about 100,000 shillings? Why would it take long?
That's an independent institution, and therefore you don't get to try to get nosy on what they are doing. They will think you are interfering with their work. But remember, like I said last time, that actually it was myself who instituted an audit, and sometimes we do random checks. And I said, let me find out from the ministries what is going on. I said I wanted the Ministry of Agriculture, Health, and a few other ministries, Water. So when they brought that, and I saw that there's a wheelbarrow that was costing 109, I got curious and asked, okay, what type of wheelbarrow is this? And I was told it was supposed to be a food trolley. And this was a recommendation that had been made by the national government, Kabete, that, for all slaughterhouses, and, if you want to export any meat, and also having been appears in the livestock, then you must use material that is not cancerous. And therefore, they were saying this is not an ordinary wheelbarrow. So what they were checking is whether this particular wheelbarrow, the material used was actually non-carcinogenic, like I said, or it was ordinary wheelbarrow which costs 3,000. Of course, no wheelbarrow, ordinary wheelbarrow will cost 109,000. So I think it's a matter that we surcharged people, awaiting the final recommendations from EACC. If they find that there was some malpractice, then of course they will be able to carry their own cross.
Let's go back to the conference in Meru.
Yes.
And the general performance of the counties. Yeah. You'll find that there is a serious problem with health, evolution of health.
Yes.
In the first place, The people in the Ministry of Health did not want to be devolved, but they were devolved. And in fact, governors wanted them. You want involvement of many things.
Yes.
What is happening with health?
Health sector, of course, has been problematic, not just when it was devolved. Remember, even Afia House used to be called Mafia House because of the problems that health sector faces. And health is normally comes into focus because it touches the lives of everyone. You know, it's just like the agriculture. You know, talk about food. So health, technically, for the example of say Bungoma, find that the budget is about, you allocate about 2.2 billion to the health sector. About 1.8 then goes to pay the workers, the nurses and the doctors and all that kind of thing. So there's very heavy human resource in the Ministry of Health, and sometimes the amounts that remain for budget of say drugs and the infrastructure development is very little, and therefore you really have to struggle with that. But as much as it's being reflected like nothing much has happened, but there's a lot of improvement in the health sector on the ground. We have the challenges, the usual challenges of maybe drugs delaying to come because of not having enough funds to purchase the drugs. But if you go to most counties, you'll realize that there's a lot of infrastructure improvement. Let me give you an example of, say, Bungoma. When we took over, one of the health facilities that I went to had just a ward without a single bed. We bought 40 beds, that's in Bumula, and gave them. Then we also bought 400 new beds and gave to most of the facilities. We have improved when we took over, there were no theater lights in the hospital, the operating table was broken. We have replaced that, and as we speak now, there's refurbishment. When you go to, say, Mandera held their first Syrian operation since the world was created, since independence. That had never happened. So that tells you what could have been happening, or what has been happening in that particular area for all these years. Most counties have also bought ambulances. Of course, you know, when we took over, the ambulance services were like grounded. They were not operational at all. So I think the health sector is not there's a bit of exaggeration in the problems that they are facing.
But there are many counties with the staff are on strike.
Yeah, you know, let me
no uniform promotion.
Let me tell you,
appointment.
The promotions, for example, the national government had done a lot of promotion when they were still the health was still a national government function, but they never affected it. So there are people, it's true, people have stagnated in the same job group for 10 years, for 5 years. Counties are now taking up those challenges with the Public Service Board. Again, the only example I can use is my county, because we have had those challenges and they are similar across the counties. The Public Service Board has now promoted the doctors, it has promoted nurses, and sometimes the question of strike has been as a result of delayed payment, not only in the health sector, but generally across the counties, all the civil servants. And you know, this has been caused by delays in reimbursement or no releasing of funds from the treasury. But most counties have also made arrangements with the banks to be able to assist them so that salaries are paid on time. But another issue that you raised, which is important, like the health did not want to be devolved. The danger was that, you know, in most of the health facilities, and I worked in government and I know, is that there was lack of proper supervision of the doctors and nurses who are working there. But now with the devolved system, the supervision was going to be on the ground. We are now there. Most governors would pass the hospital almost on a daily basis to check whether the doctors are working or not. So I think the overall picture is that there's a lot of improvement in terms of what has happened. In fact, if we're looking at statistics, then you find that for example, 4,486 doctors have been recruited by the county government since we took over. Over 15,000 nurses have also been recruited across board in all the counties ever since we took over. And there's also 40% increment in terms of funds that are used for purchase of drugs. And the information we're also getting is that the infant mortality rate has reduced from about 64 to 40%. So I think even new media need to also assist us by picking the positive aspects of the devolved systems, because the best way to kill a dog is to give it a bad name. and then you have justification to kill it. But I think because there was that clamor that, Minister of Health should be go back to the national government, and that was going to be the beginning of centralization. Because the moment health goes, the next will be agriculture, the next will be education, the next will be, in fact, this thing is not working. Then we get to a point where, like when Moses was taking the Israelites from Egypt, they got to some point where I said, why did you bring us to suffer? We should go back where we were instead of going to Canaan. So we should be focusing on going forward and not going backward. So the challenges are there. We can be able to work on them, and also asking the national government to build the capacity, because that's also their role. It's a constitutional mandate to build the capacities of the counties. There is
two things about the Intergovernmental Technical Committee that took over from the Transition Authority.
Yes.
The chairman of the Council of Governors, Munya, says first, it doesn't have enough money.
Yes.
Does it have any effective role to play? Two, he says that it should not be under the Minister of Devolution, it should be independent. Because being under ministry, it cannot be independent.
Yes, I agree with the chair. And that was the position that we took as a council. Because the technical committee, the Intergovernmental Technical Committee, actually is the one in law that is now supposed to be managing our affairs with the summit. Because when you go there, they're supposed to arrange the summit. When you go there, they're supposed to take minutes and make follow-up of what is agreed at the summit. And you see, the two levels of government are interdependent, although we are related, the national government and the county government. And therefore, if it's anchored in devolution, it means already it's a department of a Minister of Devolution, and therefore they will be directly responding to the minister or the permanent secretary in charge of devolution, and yet they're supposed to be the one to be like to serve both levels of government. And that's why we're saying that they must also be adequately funded, because the last time we had our council meeting, they said they didn't have enough funds, they were at the mercy of devolution, and that was making it difficult for them to perform their duties. And that's why we're saying that with transition authority now out of the way, and we have also had most of our issues discussed in at the summit not followed through. So this is the committee that should be able to follow through the decisions that we make, because that's the highest organ in the devolved structure, that what is discussed at the summit cannot go beyond that. That is the limit. So if it's not implemented, there's nowhere else it can go. And therefore that technical committee must be able to be effective, must be funded, and must be independent for them to perform.
Now, the road sector.
Yes.
The roads have been reclassified.
Yes.
And many of them given to counties.
Yes.
The other day I met an engineer.
Yes.
A road engineer who is a consultant, who used to work for ministry for years. He tells me, for instance, in a county, there's a lot of money that will be given to counties for doing the roads, graveling, tamaking, whatever. Of course, you have these rural authorities that are there. But the guy tells me that the counties don't have staff. They don't have people to do that. They get the money, they can't even use it. You are incapable of spending that money or even building the roads because you have no capacity at all. The money will be given, but finally not used.
I think that is not true. If you go to most counties, one of the priority areas has been roads. Because when we took over, the road infrastructure had completely collapsed in most counties. The roads were full of potholes if they were tarmac. The others were more of chambers than roads. And we have tried with the meager resources that we have had to do those roads. The problem has been, and that's why even the matter is in court. We say that if you look at the constitution, they said there will be national and county roads, which meant that class A, B, and C, these were national roads. D, E, and unclassified roads will belong to the county governments, to the counties. Now the reclassification again took some roads, put them into C, and then others were put into B, others were put into whatever. What we are saying is that since many of these roads have been given to the counties, we also want funds to follow, because it's clear that funds follow functions. So if a function has been devolved, then funds should also be devolved in equal measure for us to be able to perform. But if the roads we are given more roads without funds, obviously we shall not be able to perform. And again, maybe this is where you can read some mischief, maybe that, somebody will say, we've given them the roads now, you can see they are not able to function.
It's not a question of money. It is a question of having people.
Even staff.
Where will you get them?
We have been recruiting staff, And some of those staff that are working in the rural roads for the national government, they are also assisting us in the counties. Because you see, one thing that my own take is that Mwananchi wants a road. Mwananchi doesn't care whether this is a national road or whether it's done by the county road. It's a road that he wants a good road to be done. So we can, in the meantime, use existing stuff, and that's why that relationship between the counties and national government is important. There's no need of an engineer sitting in a county, and because most roads are county roads, and he doesn't do anything and sits there and says, "Me, I belong to the national government." I think that relationship we must bond, and so that they're also able to assist. And if money funds also come,
you see, the problem is corruption. There is a lot of corruption in construction of roads.
Yes,
because not see the one, for instance, the one that was built by Mutua.
Yes.
In a few days, and I've seen it in the Facebook the other day.
Yes.
It's not a road anymore.
you know, it's...
there's this one now, they're talking some technology from Asian countries.
Yes, yeah, Malaysia.
Malaysia.
Yeah.
I don't know about it, but maybe it's good, maybe it's not good.
Yeah, it is true that there has been a lot of corruption in the road sector. And this is where integrity comes in. Because you see, there are technical people who will come up with, say, the BQs, the bills of quality.
Yeah.
And they're saying that a road is going to have this thickness. But when they go to construct the road, maybe that thickness is not achieved. And it's at that point where the money that was supposed to make that thickness is now shared, maybe between the engineers and the contractor who's working on the road. So the BQs are important. But some of those roads that you're talking about, what I would say is that, you know, Mwananchi have also put a lot of pressure on the governors, to the extent that some people became very ambitious to try and satisfy Mwananchi, because they're saying, you know, 3 years down the line, where is the road? Where is water? Where is this? So in that confusion, somebody can end up doing things that are not right, which is wrong. We should be able to, if it's a road, let a road be designed properly, let it be done to the specifications, and even those who go to inspect should make sure that standards are maintained. Because if standards are not maintained... Why
can't we stay with the Urban Roads Authority, the KENHA, or all those authorities, and they do work, you give them contract to do the work, as counties.
But okay, their role...
Because they have the technical people, they have the knowledge, you just give them contract. Why are we going to resolve them?
You know, that is also, that's a possibility where you can enter into an agreement. And that's why they're saying that, for example, there are some counties that have already entered into some arrangement with the national government after some roads were devolved. And we did agree that where a county feels that it has no capacity to implement that road, then it can enter into an agreement with the national government to do the road for them. You just need to sign an agreement and say that let's do this. But they're saying that the national government, if you look at most of their functions, are policy and standards. So if the standards are maintained there, then they can be able to do that. But that does not mean it will fight corruption that has been there. After all, the roads have been generally under the national government, and these problems have still been there. But I agree with you that we need to build capacity of the people in the counties in terms of recruiting engineers, recruiting supervisors, so that work is done properly. Because where we don't have enough capacity, where we don't have human resource to supervise, again, substandard work will be done, the contractor will be paid, he will disappear, and within 3 months or 4, there will be no road.
So what do you say? I mean, in terms of roads,
yes,
that question of integrity about the thickness of whatever,
yes,
the standard of a road.
Yes.
Whom do we hold accountable?
I think the engineers who are there, and most counties, of course, have recruited engineers.
That's what I'm telling you, because that man told me that there are no engineers.
Yeah. We have engineers who belong to the national government. Some counties have recruited engineers of their own. Some counties have bought machinery to be able to do their work. But it's still a challenge. And it's something that we need to address, because now with the roads, most roads devolved to the counties, it's going to be incumbent upon us to recruit staff who are going to do that. If I talk for Bungoma as we speak now, there is recruitment going on for engineers, for plant operators, and all those who are going to operate the machinery that we have. And these are some of the things, like when we meet in Meru, we normally share as counties. what are the best practices, say, from Taita Taveta? What are the best practices from Machakos? For example, if Bungoma is doing well in agriculture, can instead of reinventing the wheel, can the same be replicated, say, in Migori? These are some of the things that we should be able to share and interact with as we meet in the conference.
What is the role of the MCAs in this conference in Meru?
Their role is, you know,
apart from just listening.
You know, when you're talking about devolution, and like I said in my opening remarks, devolution does not belong to the governors alone. Devolution, if you're talking about account government, for instance, if you're talking about the legislative arm of government and the executive arm of government, because that is what then forms the county government. So the role of the MCAs in this particular conference, we also want to bond. We want to see what are the challenges that we have faced in the last 3 years. There has been a lot of glamour for impeachment of governors, the budgets being mutilated sometimes by the committees at the county assembly, therefore interfering with maybe the planning and the processes. So this gives us an opportunity to sit together and look at how, you know, where have we not done well? How can we improve on what the areas that we have not performed better, so that we make devolution work? And the senators are also coming because they play also an oversight role as senators, and therefore it's a conference. And then the stakeholders are people, business people who are supplying us with the materials in the counties. There are private partners who are sponsoring, like UNDP, you know, National Bank, KCB. So we sit together on a table and look at how we can improve devolution going forward.
There's somebody from your county, somebody can't call him, who says you talk about the promotion of civil servants. Is there an issue there?
Talk about?
The promotion of civil servants in Bungoma County. Some issue about Tanzania. What the issue about promotion?
I don't know what they're talking about, but like I mentioned, the Public Service Board is now in the process of carrying out promotions. I know that has been a challenge in the health sector. It has demotivated most doctors and nurses because, like I said, most of them have stagnated in the same job group for even 5-6 years, and that's not very good for results. And that's why the Public Service Boards are now working on the promotion, so that people are, some have even acquired more papers, and yet there's nothing to show. I mean, they have not been motivated in any way. So the Public Service Boards are now working on the promotions.
What about the issue of performance contracting? Why would anybody be promoted because they got a degree and not performance?
We have performance contracting, but you see there are also areas which require, for example, a degree, a paper. If they're saying the minimum requirement is a degree, then you must produce it. You either have it or you don't have it. Then, of course, once you get onto the job, then there's performance contract. Most counties have also started embracing the management style of performance contracting, where you agree on targets, because again, without a target, you see anything you do is an achievement. So once you put a target, like if I also again use the example of Bungoma, yesterday they were receiving the second quarter report from Price Waterhouse, who have been consultants doing that, and the ministries were shown how they have performed. Have you achieved your targets? This is what you said you are going to do. This have you achieved, and if not, why? So that people are getting value for their money. So performance contracting is the way to go, so that people are evaluated on how they have performed.
Okay, now summary before you close. Can you tell us what you think is the biggest challenge with devolution?
The biggest challenge of devolution, one, has been managing expectations. Remember that when we took over, the expectations of people was in the skies. You know, people thought it was going to be like electricity, where you switch on and off, and then roads will be there, hospitals will be there. And this is going to be a process. Even the advanced democracies, some of them still face challenges. So managing the expectations has been a big problem. Another issue, another challenge has been, you know, because one of the areas that devolution wanted to achieve was citizen participation in what was going on. And sometimes it has been very difficult to get people to come and participate. People want to be paid when they come for any meeting to participate. And yet, for example, if you are coming up with a budget to prioritize areas that you need to embark on, we need people to come and say, yes, here we want agriculture. Remove money from foreign trips, put it on agriculture. This should come from Wananchi themselves. And this has been a challenge. We want them to come. Number three, of course, has been the relationship between the different organs. You see, like we talked about the Senate, the MCS, and all that. But I think going forward, we are trying to see how we can manage. And of course, being the pioneer governors, it has also not been very easy. We've been plowing virgin land, and of course, vis-a-vis the expectations, there's been a lot of pressure. And that's why you've seen that people have gone out to be very ambitious and doing things that may not be long-lasting just to show people that they are working. But I think being pioneer governors, what I want to appeal to the Kenyans is that what we have achieved in 3 years in some counties has never been achieved by the national government in the last 50 years. It has not been easy. All is not lost. We are still prepared to improve on where we have not performed well. We are not saying everything has been okay, but I think we have tried. And partly why we are meeting now as we go to the last leg, because we are also holding this conference, cognizant of the fact that we have an election coming and that people want to take over our positions. But we are telling Wananchi that let us be judged let us be judged by what we have achieved so far, the challenges that we have faced, and what we want to do. Because we had manifestos, we had promises we made to the people. Sometimes you make promises, but when you get to the field, the reality is different. And certain circumstances may not allow you to achieve what you exactly planned to achieve. But that, and the national government, the goodwill that we are talking about, and we will also be talking to His Excellency the President, because the other day you heard him say, you know, do you have water, do you have this, do you have this in his speech, and
seem to be happy.
He didn't seem to be very happy with us. We will be talking to him. We'll also be showing him what we have done as counties, so that maybe those who had given him that information can know that we are also moving forward. But the bottom line is that this is our country, and as much as we are even talking about counties, we still belong to one nation called Kenya. And that any development taking place anywhere within Kenya is a development is an advancement for this country. And therefore we want the national government to give us the support, to give us the goodwill, and as county governors, the first governors ever, to be also given the support of Wananchi to be able to transform their lives. And that is why we went for these seats, and we are still determined to deliver.
Thank you very much, Governor Lusaka. Wish you the best in your meeting at Meru. And I hope that all ends well, and that in fact, anyway, there is no way you can go out of devolution. It must continue.
Yes, yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.